Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today we have again pretty much a brand new topic that we haven't discussed up to that much depth before, and it's going to revolve, as you might have guessed by the title itself, about the dopamine, which is one of the first chemicals we are about to dive deep into. And I think it's going to be a lot of useful information for especially all of you that actually want to leverage dopamine as much as you would have liked to. Now, I think one of the main things you can notice is that the setup is slightly different. We have a couple of amazing people, thanks to which we are now able to have much better in the entire setup. So looking forward to really having even more content for you guys to actually make down forward with even much more improved scene and content as well. Now, basically, to start off with dopamine, I was actually slightly getting tired by the notion that dopamine is a pleasure hormone, or that's how it was called. It's none of that. You can think of dopamine in a way you are more driven to do something. So when we usually call something, or when we call something motivation, dopamine is involved in that. And the way it works is that it drives you to perform the activity or even the same activities all over again. So I would just tell you that when you are deciding to go to work, dopamine is involved in that, whether you will do it or not. Of course, I would go deeper as well, is that there are some nuances to that, that basically dopamine drives you to actually do something or enjoy something. Now, what I think is pretty interesting is that you might have remembered also the times, or I would just tell you a story, which happens quite often. You basically choose whether to actually go to the gym or not, or whether to actually go do something today. For example, even clean your room, something as simple as that. Again, dopamine is involved in that, so you just have to remember that when you make a choice to not do something, also dopamine is involved in that, but you will have greater sense of um, self if you actually do decide to do the activity, which is completely different part after that. But everything preceding the action or the activity you are about to do, and also after that, well, all the feelings are revolving around the dopamine, which gets basically sprinkled in your brain. And depending on how you've set up your brain, and I will come back to this, you will be more likely to perform specific activities over time. So this rule does apply that the more you go to the gym, the more likely you will be to come back again and again. So I think that's pretty much would be the main intro as well. And I think that basically what I want to mostly outplay is that dopamine acts the most when you are about to do something also new, because there is a novelty factor involved in that. Basically, you can imagine, probably the simplest example is when you are scrolling newsfeed on socials. It's very addicting, and this is because the novelty factor is huge in there. You always expect to see something new or something exciting or something that can actually spike up your emotions, which newsfeed is especially on social such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for that sense. They are very well designed to show you a couple of posts which you can just skip because they aren't that interesting, but there's then gonna be one special post which will catch your attention, and your brain will be then more wired to that to come back again to that. So this whole thing comes full circle, is that the more you do a given activity, the more likely you will be to come back to it. So you can actually see this in people developing addictions to all the things that some people have never done. For example, alcohol is the same thing. Everyone is pretty much malleable to being addicted to alcohol, some more, some less than others, some more than others. This is also slightly impacted by genetics, but your own ability to skip alcohol or social media in terms of the newsfeed part, or even the messages themselves, because they also drive your attention, which is again with the dopamine. Because when someone basically types you and you see that, for example, red or I think sometimes blue icon of you having received the message, It's very rewarding for the brain. There's again this novelty factor in there. So this is one of the biggest things you just have to remember, is that you can basically actually become addicted to anything. This is why you even see people who are workaholics, and I, for example, myself become one of them. Is that I'm basically thinking about the work a lot. I know some people who are like that, but usually, well, I've also noticed that people just become addicted to something, and you just get to pick and choose what you are addicted to. It can be as small of things as cleaning your house. Some people, we've even seen, probably you've heard of, even I think there have been some shows for some reason of people who just want to clean every day. Seem to be probably interesting for a lot of people to see that on TV back in the day, but there is very sorts of amounts of addictions you can actually develop, and it all sorts around this dopamine hormone. This basically ties completely into the fact that the whole brain structure is very malleable, and that pretty much the whole brain structure changes based on what you experience. And this has been basically because of our evolution mostly. This is mostly why we had been actually able to create lots of innovations, actually continue to make lots of innovations, because the entire brain structure is really designed for us to adapt to a lot of new things. Like, if you just think about it, in terms of the whole internet at the moment, it's been available for definitely not more than 100 years, and nowadays everyone is able to kind of use it, or almost everyone. So you can see how adaptable we are, just to learn new technologies. And even already, I think lots of people are developing addictions on those, especially for example socials or games as well. So this is the general structure around it. Now you basically know that you can develop addiction to pretty much anything, and the hormone dopamine has a lot to it. And what I want you to basically know is that you get to pick and choose what you're addicted to, and if you even are, but usually people are addicted to something. What I mean by that is that I think there are scenarios where being addicted to work is much better than being addicted to socials. So this is the main point I want to make, is that dopamine literally drives pretty much your entire life, and you get to pick and choose what you do with it. And I will just outline some things. Is that the reason why, for example, socials, games, or for that example also porn, are quite a bit widespread among male population, is that they drive your dopamine in short time frames, but really up. It's up to 1,000%. Usually, some otherwise normal activities drive dopamine maybe even 8 times less than that. But for example, I would just tell you that exercising does raise your dopamine less than that, but the dopamine you get from exercise is more gradual over the day. And another example, which I do every day, just as a context, are cold showers. And you can imagine that cold showers also spike your dopamine, but they again work in a way where they gradually increase the dopamine over the day. And what that basically means is that you don't really have a big drop the day after. With stuff that drive your dopamine up, which we mentioned, stuff like socials, or even some addictive substances such as marijuana, cannabis, they will spike your dopamine really high, and then you get basically these periods where it has to go down. It just has to, and because it spikes so high, you get those periods where you are so low that you want to feel good again, and this is where the addiction does develop. This is the main reason why you basically get to pick and choose your poison, I would actually say, because if you are able to, instead of these high increases and very low lows, if you decide to use dopamine in a way that is, well, one, beneficial to your life, because doing work or working out is infinitely better than just basically being on socials or playing games as well. And the second thing is that you will, if you do those activities such as work, you will not experience such loss in your life as before. They will still be there, and you will have to learn how to manage them by yourself. Some people, I would just mention that some people just stare into the walls and just think, um, which, if you are more of a average person, I think usually people don't do that. But that is us up to some extremes people actually go to when being in these low states. But you can basically pick and choose what you actually do with it. And I will give you one more context: is that dopamine is such a huge factor in the world, and this is why I also named this as a universal currency. Is that basically every stock increase, crypto increase, and everything you see is driven by the hormone dopamine. If people weren't motivated by this hormone to invest in that coin or in that stock, it wouldn't go up. So you can imagine that basically how the psychology plays in our brains in a way that people are wired and motivated to invest in something or even into someone's life, for example, by being married with them at that point. But as we are talking about stocks, people when people have high dopamine when they are about investing into a particular thing, they will, and the price of that goes up. It's the same when we're buying property. So this also relates to real estate, to investing in someone else's business as a crowdfunding, and everything about that is a dopamine basically drives all of that, and you get to pick and choose which way you want to use yours. So hopefully this was quite a bit helpful. I think this is general context. We haven't gone too in depth into how and which pathways exactly dopamine controls. I will just leave you with one last point: is that despite all of these effects of dopamine, you are enslaved to it. There is a part of your brain which is more called of an executive function, which is this prefrontal cortex. It's prefrontal because it's in the front of your head, and that is called the executive function because, for example, even if some people are in withdrawal states from cannabis, marijuana, or, for example, socials, they are still possibly able to overcome that. And this is the prefrontal cortex, which you will decide with, and you will use that part of the brain to think whether you want to indulge in some of the activities or whether you want to do also a more meaningful work or even working out. So this is how you are actually able to overcome these dopamine lows and highs. So thank you.